Greetings, AP Lit students for Chisholm Trail High School 2017-2018. Rather than spend too much time in the course going through the syllabus on day one, I've got a couple other things that I'd rather spend our time focused on. So I'm recording a series of videos to go ahead and provide advanced access to the information you need to know to be able to navigate this course. You're going to find that a lot of times if I need to pass on information with this school year to you that's not essentially related directly to the text and all that we're working on in class or the materials we're trying to study, I'm either going to use a video format or some other method to be able to provide this information. So let's go ahead and get started with it. First and foremost, if you do not know who I am, I'm sorry. I'm Dr. Sutton. I teach AP English Literature for Chisholm Trail High School. I've taught the course since its inception. Actually took over halfway through year one, and I've taught it ever since. The school's AP test performance record is not mine. It actually belongs to the students that have tested over the last several years. However, I am exceptionally proud to have been their guide through those years, and I'm looking forward to being able to work with all of you. This year's focus is 100% on 5. I know last year was the year of 5 for Chisholm Trail High School. This year is the year of obtaining 5s for our AP English Literature program. It's not a 5-year program just yet. We're only in year 4, but I know you want 5s. I want 5s, and I feel that this year I've got the best chance to be able to get students to that level for the first time ever. I had a lot of success in the past, but I was still very much getting my grasp of the course, which you'll find is usually the case for AP teachers. And now that I feel really comfortable with the materials, I've got some new ways to be able to push us to be able to make us successful. So let's get started. Contact information. If you have a question or concern you need to ask, send my direction. This also includes parents. My email address is dsutton@ems-isd.net, and my Twitter handle is @gooddoctorsir. Now, as far as contacting me, if you have a direct concern with materials within the course and you need contact or feedback directly from me, it's not a question about, what does this mean in the book or anything else like that, which could be done through a DM. I'm talking about you have a really big question about why we're looking at a particular novel, or, a question about mock exams or things like that. Please send those types of questions to me through my email. If you need to contact me, that's the best way to do it. You can certainly call Chisholm Trail High School, and they will forward you to my classroom's phone, and I even have my phone number and extension on my webpage. But I'll be dead honest, that phone sits at the front of the classroom. I do check it when I have time, but I have greater accessibility to my email. It's with me everywhere I go. I can answer emails on the weekends as well as when I'm at school. And so if you want to get up with me that way. Plus, it gives me a chance to be able to look at the information you've sent and get feedback to you with some good, solid thought put behind it. A lot of times if you call me with a problem, I'll answer it if I can. Otherwise, I'm going to request a little bit of time to be able to research the question you presented me with. Now, as far as contact via email, during a school day, I will get back to you within about 4 hours. It just depends on if class is going on at that moment. I try to at least acknowledge that I got the email within the 4-hour window, and then I reserve the right to take up to 24 hours, if not a little bit longer, depending on the severity of the question, to research the answers you're seeking. I tend to be pretty fast about doing email communication, but there are times where I may have to dig a little bit deeper by contacting district contacts or things like that. So that's contact info. As far as my Twitter handle, I encourage every single student that takes my course to sign up for my Twitter. I do not tweet students in any creepy manner. I do not join or go find or follow students unless they follow me first. So you may be in the class. I may see your friends retweeting stuff you've done. I will not go directly follow you. You have to follow me. Parents, follow me too. I welcome everybody. I post up information all throughout the entire year about the course that's going on. Just gives an insight into some of the things I think as well. It's all business within that, as well as having fun as a member of the CTHS family. Additionally, if you have direct questions for me, you can use direct messages to contact me, and I will respond to those as long as it's within the hours set forth by the EMS ISD handbook. That means that around My philosophy is honestly around 10 o'clock at night and all, I'm probably not going to respond to you until the next day. And responses the next day, I won't start doing those until around 7 to 7:30 in the morning. I just do not think it's appropriate for me to contact you at night when you're supposed to be sleeping, and so I'm not going to do it. Additionally, my Twitter account is directly tied to my EMSISD email address, so parents, mine is 100% secured. It's one of those cases that I've always felt that it's important to have protection when for the students that are communicating with me via social media. So my social media is accessible by district because the district has access to it all the time. So let's look at the requirements of the course. The AP English Literature course essentially is a study of AP English Literature. We're looking at, you know what, let's go with the simple version. Welcome to sophomore literature for a college student. Be fair, we're actually harder than the sophomore level of literature, but that's the course credit you're going to earn if you make at least a 4 or higher on my AP test. More on that score in a moment. The AP English Lit course shifts the focus from the rhetorical perspectives in AP English language, where we're looking at the impact of the text on the audience it was created for. You know, that lovely rhetorical analysis Q2 from last year. We move now into analyzing not how it impacts the audience, but we start looking at the reasons the author chose to do what they did with the text, not in relationship to the audience, but in relationship to the development of the story. Modifications to the characters, representations in all their own time period, a lot of different options like that. We study the literature for the literature, not for the target audience. We don't care about the audience all that much here, because any and everybody could potentially be an audience for a piece of literature, a novel, a poem, a piece of prose. It could be targeted to anyone in any time period that comes across the piece. It's not like AP English language, which means we're fixing to ditch a whole bunch of those terms that you picked up last year because we need to make certain that our writing looks like we're talking about lit, not lang. More on that as we go through the course. So course specifics. The class will have a combination of reading, writing, and spoken activities to pump up your analytical mindset. My background, if you do not know, is I've actually taught more years of college than I ever have high school. And that'll always be the case because I still teach college while I'm teaching high school. I have a track record of working for most of the universities in the Metroplex, not just TCC, but also for TCU, University of North Texas, Texas Women's University, etc. I've actually been employed by these colleges, and I know the expectations and standards that they have, and I also know the expectations and standards of the College Board because I'm also an AP rater. I actually read the exams over the summer. So, that being the case, I have high expectations for all of the assignments we do, and just because you took me for AP Lang does not mean my policies will stay the same. I'm going to talk about how the assignments are going to be evaluated in a follow-up video, but for this one, as far as the essays, writing, you're going to have, I'd say at least a minimum of 4 timed writings every single 6 weeks. You will read a ton. A couple of years ago, I tried doing the whole read 1 novel per 6 weeks, and the students did not like that method. They actually wanted to move a little bit faster through the text. And while some teachers in district have a philosophy of drawing out the text and looking at it and analyzing it in that way, and it works for them, my philosophy is on quantity and quality. I want to have a lot of text that you've read so that you have a ton of options when it gets to the Q3 on the AP exam. More importantly, I've paired together a lot of different texts to be able to create thematic units. We're going to look at a theme through each one of the units, connecting piece, so that we can develop your ability to be able to talk more on a thematic level as opposed to trying to talk about it from the perspective of an audience. So we're going to read quite a bit. We'll have annotations, lit circles, and everything else like that to build up your skills. And then conversations, you're going to talk. If you haven't been by room 401 anytime ever, especially towards the end of the year, you've missed out on the changes that I've got going on. No more are we going to have student desks. We're moving to large lecture tables, couches, and flexible seating. I want you to get into a position as if you were at a college graduate seminar room to talk about the literature with passion. I want you to be comfortable. Yes, when you test for the AP exam, you're going to be in those plastic chairs in the gym with the plastic tables, but while we're absorbing the information, we're going to be much more comfortable. So we're going to be having thorough conversations. In fact, if everything goes well, I probably will have a Keurig machine that's in the classroom that'll be available for you to feel free to make use of at any particular moment in time. It just has to have the water. Please note, if I do that, I am not providing cups necessarily. I may or may not, but I'm definitely not providing cake cups. So more on that later. As far as materials, I've thought a lot about the materials that I want to use this year, and so I'm going to go ahead and let you know, because you'll know the materials and all before tax-free weekend in a couple of weekends, and you can go ahead and buy this stuff while it's cheap. Number one, 3 highlighters of different colors. Pick different colors. It's important to have the highlighters because I want you to be able to highlight the text when I give you stuff that you can highlight. We can't highlight the books that I give you, the novels that I have, but you could highlight the ones that you go buy if you choose to actually have copies of them for yourself. And be honest, being able to highlight and write in those books is wonderful. Far more valuable than just looking at the book, handing back over, and I put it back in the book room. 2, pencils. We'll need these for multiple choice activities. It's not that you really have to use them for the materials and all for the Scantrons that we use in the school, but I want you to go ahead and be in practice of having them. I refuse to accept essays that are written in pencil, though. You must use pen. Yes, that does mean you're going to have to cross through stuff at times. That's okay. We practice as we're going to actually write. Keep your pen stocked up. I occasionally have a small quantity of them stocked up myself from the tax-free weekend, but it's one of those situations that I only buy them at one point each semester, and when they're gone, they're gone. Number 4, sticky notes. I don't care what size. Personally, I'd probably go for the ones that are a little bit smaller because you're going to use these to annotate the text. Most of you are going to probably use copies of the books that exist within the book room at Chisholm Trail High School. I cannot afford to have those written in because they're going to last a long, long time. So if you use minor sticky notes, you can put those into the text where you're having your ideas and your thoughts and write what it is you're thinking, and it gives you the ability to kind of annotate the text as you go along without damaging my book. The only kicker is once we get done with the book, you got to pull them all out and toss them in the trash. Or put them on, frankly for me, a piece of notebook paper and store them in the binder. Next, paper for taking notes. Paper you need. Lots of paper. You're going to write lots of essays. You're going to take notes. Have your paper. You will also need to have a 1 1/2 inch to a 2 inch binder with a total of 6 dividers labeled Q1, Q2, Q3, research, multiple choice, and notes. When we get to the page about how you're getting scores, when you watch that video, you're going to see I am going to be very picky about the binders this year. The binders give us an opportunity to pull out and track the progress that we're making on essays and work that we're doing. I watched last year, I had the binders that I provided, and I watched way too often, and I saw it whenever I pulled them to empty them out. Students weren't making adequate use of them. So I've actually got grades that are going to go along with your binder usage and organization. So get a binder you like, take care of the binder. The binder shouldn't leave my classroom unless it's cleared by me, so if you need to pull it for Avid or something else like that, you can check it out, but it's got to come right back in, and you're going to use that binder every single day. You also need to have your district email that's provided to you by EMS ISD and access to Canvas. I occasionally will have laptops available for student use in my classroom, but for the most part, you're going to be accessing Canvas on either the district computers in the library or on your own. We do have written assignments that are done outside of class 100% that are going to be uploaded to Canvas. So it is imperative that you have these access points figured out and taken care of at the very early onset of the school year. Please don't ask me in class to go get this information clarified. I do not have time to spend on this. This is something to do during your lunch periods or before or after school in the library or through the house principal's office. Student evaluations are the same thing you'll looked at for years. 70% for major grades, 30% for minor grades. As far as remediation tutorials, I'll go a little bit more in depth about how I allow students to remediate when I get to the assignments themselves, but I do believe in mastery over everything. I would rather you master how to do each assignment that I possibly can ethically before the test, because it'll make you stronger on the test. Again, more to come later. Class rules. We're going to follow the RIDE philosophy. There may be something slightly new introduced when we get back to school in a few weeks. If that happens, it's fine. I'll just provide a verbal update to that. But I like the RIDE philosophy, which pretty much revolves around respect. We respect ourselves, respect others, respect our campus. Boom. That's pretty good. Now, respect, be on time. Tardies are going to be something that we actually go after big time this year. It is a mission, and I'm sick of students showing up late to my classes. You will not be allowed in my classroom if you don't show up on time. And if you're late, you're going to have to go down to the location they've designated. You're going to get the little slip and on to indicate that your tardy has been processed, and then you will come to my class. But I will not let you into that classroom without that bit of paper. Let me know that the office is taking care of recording your tardy. And please note, it's very likely that tardies are going to jeopardize even exemptions this coming year. We are cracking down on these things because I can't teach an AP class this is worth of materials to a student that's continually late. Additionally, bathroom usage. I will not allow students to use the bathroom the first 10 or last 10 minutes of class. I'm pretty flexible around the other points in time as long as we're not discussing or doing something direct, but don't even ask. Additionally, the only bathrooms that you will be allowed to use for my classroom, even if the campus does not activate a bathroom policy, and the only fountain you'll be able to use are the ones right at the opening of the hallway just outside my door that's right next across from where the nurse's office is. You will use those bathrooms because they're the closest. You will come immediately back. You can't afford to miss my materials. The next part I'm actually going to read verbatim. This is the literature policy from the College Board, and then I'll explain why. In an ongoing effort to recognize the widening cultural horizons of literary works written in English, the AP English Literature Development Committee will consider and include diverse authors in their representative reading lists. Issues that might, from a specific cultural viewpoint, be considered controversial, including references to ethnicities, nationalities, religions, races, dialects, gender, or class, are often represented artistically in works of literature. The Development Committee is committed to careful review of such potentially controversial material. Still, recognize the universal value of literary art that probes difficult and harsh life experiences and so deepens understanding. The committee emphasizes that fair representation of issues and peoples may occasionally include controversial material. Since AP students have chosen a program that directly involves them in college-level work, the AP English Literature and Composition exam depends on a level of maturity consistent with the age of 12th grade students who have engaged in thoughtful analysis of literary texts. The best response to a controversial detail or idea in a literary work might well be a question about the larger meaning, purpose, or overall effect of the detail or idea in context. AP students should have the maturity, the skill, and the will to seek the larger meaning through thoughtful research. Such thoughtfulness is both fair and owed to the art and to the author. This is from page 8 of the College Board's processes for AP English Literature. I am including this for the simple reason that our text can be considered controversial occasionally. There are a few of them that I'll mention here in a moment that have the potential to be viewed that way, but the controversial component of it is typically based upon a lack of understanding of what the text is trying to accomplish. Let me simplify. You're taking a course that's the equivalent of a sophomore level's worth of literature in college. I am not picking a single text that is above that level of maturity, and to be honest, I'm picking text with the mindset that we have 12th grade students, most of them 18 or younger, in my classroom. I'm picking materials that, yes, they may deal with mature context, but they will not do it in a way that is inappropriate or that will be harmful to the student in any fashion. More importantly, these are texts that I have read, I have studied, and I will be there to guide students through these texts to make certain that there's no harm brought to them and they're able to see the greater exponential value in the literature that I've selected for our course. More importantly, each text that I have selected is frequently represented on the AP English Literature Q3 question and on the multiple choice exam. These are the texts and all that they will more than likely see when they test, and it's important that they have as much textual background and access as they possibly can so they can succeed on that test. Finally, and this will be mentioned again later, if you have an issue with the text that has been selected, please don't just immediately dismiss the text. Talk to me. I'm happy to make an appointment during my conference period. I'll even make it during my lunch or before or after school. Whatever works with you. I will email it back and forth, though I'd prefer to be able to talk with you face to face. We can even have one of the administrators, the English department chair, anybody that we need to come in, and I will help we'll have a conversation about it. I would like students to read what it is that I actually have assigned, because there's a purpose behind it and there's activities that are built alongside it. That being said, if after a conversation about it, there's still a feeling that it is something that the parents and student passionately do not want the student to read, I will provide an alternative assignment. However, it should be realized that that alternative assignment will not necessarily align with the materials that are presented in the course. More importantly, there's no guarantee that the text and all that we're reading that is viewed as being controversial will not pop up on some assignment that is based off of released College Board materials. I won't make them complete a crafted writing assignment that I make myself on that text, but College Board may. And we are going to use College Board's materials in this class. So again, if you have a problem with it, please talk to me. Let me have a chance to have a conversation with you. Students have read the books that I have assigned multiple times. I've picked nothing that students have not come into contact with, including our students at Chisholm Trail High School, save one text, and I'll talk about that when I get to the list. And it's not controversial at all. The students love them, they enjoy them, and they will even attest to the fact that I walk through these texts with students and I provide them details so that they can see the greater meaning and what's being done. And that kind of ties into my philosophy. My philosophy as a teacher is a simple fact that I'm here to help students be successful. I want them to be stronger than they were when they entered my course. The AP score is important to me because it's important to getting the college credit for the students that pay for it, and it is, of course, kind of the finish line for the course. But if a student works hard in my class, does what I ask, and performs adequately on all the assignments, they are going to leave Chisholm Trail High School stronger than any of their peers that never came into contact with these materials before. They will be better prepared for success. They will write stronger than most of the college entering students that are going to start college with them, and they will be much better off for it. I work the students hard, but I work them with compassion, and I'm there for them every step of the way. They essentially get a college course with a college professor, but with a high school passion for teaching and for their success. That's what I do. I have tutorial hours built in. I do everything I can to make certain these students are a success. And if they are not being successful, I'm there every step of the way to help them out. If it was a college course, you would not have that benefit, because that's not how college professors work, but that is how I work, because I am their teacher, and I will always be in that capacity. So let's move on to a little bit more. So lit selections, and this part kind of says, hey, this does have some controversial stuff. There's controversy in some of the text. I'm just going to go ahead and lay it out there. So let's talk about it. First unit we're going to do is something called Future Imperfect. We started this summer, hopefully we're working on it right now, working with dubliners, a set of short stories, and all the students are supposed to read a selection of, annotate, and be prepared to discuss within the first week of class. And yes, there's an assignment coming for that. Not what you might think, but there's an assignment. Our first 6 weeks is going to focus on assignments that will allow students to easily transition from Lang to Lit. As such, we moved from doing the literature novels over the summer, which would lead into a Q3, which has no direct correlation to any of the essays in Lang, to short stories, which their Qs are written very much akin to the Q2 from AP Lang. There's some minor changes we have to make, and let's correct that. Big changes, because if you don't make them and all, you're not going to pass the essay. But it's very closely related, so we can help you be more successful and we'll be able to move through it faster. So we start with The Illustrated Man. It's a lovely text by Ray Bradbury that focuses on all these little minor short stories that tell about these ideas of a futuristic sci-fi driven world where everything goes awry. The perfect world of technology where it does everything you could possibly hope for. It amazes and wows and surprises and tantalizes, is dangerous. An important thing to sometimes consider, and especially when you consider when Bradbury was writing. Very worthwhile. I mean, you're talking about Arizona, where we were starting to develop some very scary technologies, and nobody was really quite certain where the future was going to go. Then we have Brave New World. Brave New World's our first controversial text. That's because it does talk about and focus initially on a culture where they have followed Henry Ford's practice of automation, They have basically the slimming line process, but of humans. They put them together and all to perform certain tasks. And because the humans don't really have anything overly complicated to do, and sexuality is no longer a necessity for producing children because they're produced in factories, essentially what they do is they go do their tasks, they work, they have some minor conversations and things like that, and sexuality is actually explored in the text early on. They do actually meet together, and there are sexual interludes that take place. Please note, it's not descriptive. It doesn't mention body parts or anything else like that overly perverted. But here's the problem. If you actually think Brave New World is a commentary on sex, and that's all it is, then you're going to miss the entire point. 3/4 of the text is a large setup and all for a commentary on a futuristic world where people are devoid of free thought and are essentially programmed automatons, very similar to robots. And when we look at this text, we look at this juxtaposition of a advanced technologically driven society, the one where they are, programmed and built and everything else like that, in comparison to a more savage, modernistic society, one very akin to our current one in some ways. And it's this discussion of the relationships between the two, and can you reconcile the two to coexisting together. Please note, this text has the little bit of the sexuality component in it, but it's got such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful role in analyzing this idea of future and perfect. Because in this perfectly, wonderfully driven society, and it's worth noting, most of the things that are included in the society that were considered, not predictive, but they were considered to be just this sci-fi level of, creativity. It's supposed to be fiction 100% that's presented within this. It all exists now. And we study that. We look at that. We talk about that. Did this piece go from sci-fi to being self-fulfilling prophecy, perhaps? Is it prophetic instead? And it makes for a wonderful discussion. I've worked with this text and all for years. And in the end, the students remember the fact that it is a commentary on the juxtaposition of these two different societies. And they lose the fact and all that it had the moments of intimacy at the onset of the text. The intimacy fades very quickly. We move on to a much deeper, much more enriched text. In fact, it's supposed to fade, the intimacy component of it, because it doesn't matter to the character and all that's actually at the focus for the first 3/4. And when the second one takes over, he's disgusted by it. Next one. The next unit is called The Surface and Beyond. We're going to look at the quality of individuals based upon who they are, not only who they are outwardly, but who they are inwardly as well. Yes, both texts actually do focus on black individuals. Othello is Shakespeare's focus on a powerful warrior within the Venetian army, and his basically fall from grace because of the manipulations of somebody that he thought he could deeply trust. The second text is A Raisin in the Sun. No controversy in this as well. Is a beautiful story about a group of African Americans living in America. It's after the points of, obviously, the liberation of the slaves is long past, and it's moved to a point and all where there's the quest for equality among blacks and whites. And it's about this family who the patriarch passes away, and they're given a certain amount of money from insurance, and then they have to navigate that type of wealth with also the uncomfortable loss of who they truly are within each of themselves. At the end, there's a pretty great, wonderful story in it about the quality of the deeper person as opposed to the exterior. And because of the deeper quality within, it lifts up the exterior as well. No controversy, second 6 weeks. Third 6 weeks, again, no controversy as well. The Awakening and Wuthering Heights both are going to be pieces that focus on the role of women. The Awakening, probably out of the two of these, is the new one that we're bringing on board. But I believe passionately within having the Awakening in our course text, because the Awakening gives you a great chance to explore women moving from being docile creatures that are completely submissive to men to being free of thought, and then what happens when you try to put them back into the confines of being subservient to men. Wuthering Heights, again, has the role of women present within it. Not exactly in the same way, but you look at how women are viewed perhaps more as cultural objects to a larger degree within the Victorian era. And I like these two texts because they work very well together. Both are written by women, and both of them show different perspectives of the rights and the roles of women within society. And I think it's just absolutely outstanding. No controversy. Lessons of Adolescence. This is our big one. This is the one that may have two controversial pieces within it. The first one's called The Kite Runner, and The Kite Runner has a pretty good reputation when it comes to text. So there's, or at least there was last couple of years, a movie version of the book on Netflix. As is always the case, the adaptation isn't as good as the real thing. The text follows, it's basically set forth in a modern time period for the beginning of it, and then it kind of goes backwards and explores the growth in the childhood of one of the main characters. And as it's going through exploring this past component, there's a moment of tragedy that happens where the character doesn't act in a way that he can respect, and this particular lack of respect and all for this moment actually kind of haunts him and leads through a lot of this quest for redemption that takes place in the later part of the story. The moment of controversy is that there is a young boy that is sexually assaulted in the text. It is not graphically spelled out. There is no direct sexual aspect at all within it, but it is alluded to for a moment. The act itself then becomes something where you're focusing on the after effects of it as opposed to the sexual act. The sexual act is just really not there. The reference to it and then the use of the guilt and all that the main character feels for a lack of inaction to protect his friend becomes the driving force of the entire text. So it does have that one controversial like second and a half, but the power that is unleashed and all by that second and a half and the quest for redemption and all for something and all that the author felt, well, not the author, but the narrator feels that he should have been able to stop and that he feels he needs redemption for, is something that our students and our kids can really use, because a lot of them have moments in their past where they feel a moment of inaction or something that they didn't do has deeply affected the quality of their being. And looking at this text gives them a chance to kind of better understand the adolescent mindset and how when you get older and you start moving through and start realizing what's going on in these situations, that there is a bright side and all on the other side of these events. The Roundhouse is a really interesting text in the fact that it was written by a woman who narrates it from the perspective of a 13-year-old boy. In the text, it takes place on a Native American reservation where the territory's ownership is a little bit controversial. In some cases, it's Native American territory. In some cases, it's federal government territory or local territory, and they're not quite 100%, specific as what each is, belongs to. Well, on one of the zones where the jurisdiction of who actually is in charge of it is in question, the mother of the 13-year-old boy is sexually assaulted. And I will be honest, this one actually has a little bit more detail about the assault than anything else does. And so this one I could see the justification of being a little alarmed by it, perhaps at the onset. But again, I do take the time to actually talk about what's going on with it, and we move through and we use that. Because the focus is so much on the sexual act that took place, and it's not that detailed. There's no conversations of the actual act of raping the woman, but there are details that are kind of like flashes throughout the process as she's recalling back to things, and there's obviously the damage to her body and all when she's found by her son and her husband and everything else like that. Well, the text focuses on how this one event impacted the overall family and how the 13-year-old boy and his family and everybody else and all deals with the after effects of that. Again, absolutely imperative that our kids face these types of situations. I'm not asking ninth graders to focus on this. I'm asking students that are either seniors or juniors and very advanced juniors in high school to focus on an issue that they really need to be able to think about. Because, let's be honest, issues of assault are very prevalent within our society. Our students either may have already or they may be going to in the future experience this either as a friend or a relative of somebody or perhaps themselves. If it is themselves or it's something they face, there is a possibility that they'll need to come forward and let me know that at least that they're not willing to do this text. This is one where if there is emotional baggage and it's not time to touch it, I do not want to. I want to give them an option to read something different. But if they want a chance to actually look at the healing process for one of these situations, told from the perspective, again, of a 13-year-old boy, so somebody that's actually slightly younger than them, but written by a woman, so it's got a unique perspective and a unique voice on it, and this is a very profound text to work with. I will have a backup text for this 6 weeks, just in case students want it, and in case there's a need to give a group of them an alternative assignment. But I'm hopeful that we can find a way for them to read this one, because it is absolutely powerful. Our English curriculum coordinator for the district helped bring this one online. It was supported by our AP coordinator at the time for the district, and it's something that I've worked with quite a bit, and I think the students really get a lot out of it. However, again, this one, out of all the pieces that are controversial, this one I can understand possibly moving off to the side. The others do not deal with something and all that the kids can't face. This one is possible. Finally, the last 6 weeks, discovery of self. We're going to look at the importance of being earnest, a wonderful play and all, where a guy pretends to be this guy named Ernest, and it turns out, well, we'll find out later. And then we have a piece called Frankenstein. Most people know the monster, but they don't know the story. And what's great about this one is it's written by a woman, who's having a little bit of a competition with a couple of men, and what's funny is it is a fantastic, just wonderful story. And so we're going to look at that before we go into the AP test. So again, of these texts, there are 3 that have controversial elements. Brave New World mentions sexuality, but does not stay focused on it at all. And in fact, it's looked at as being somewhat grotesque how it's practiced on within that culture. The Kite Runner, there is a moment of sexual assault of one of the characters, briefly acknowledged, but becomes a thematic piece for the entire text. And then Roundhouse, which does have the sexual assault of a mom, again, not spelled out in specific details, but elements of that night do come up throughout the text. And this is the one out of all of these 3 that I can more than understand if there's a need to provide an alternative text. But it is the responsibility of the student to communicate with me the fact that they need an alternative assignment for this one. I can't read their minds, and after we've been reading it, it's not the time to stop. If I've provided this advance notice of what's in that text, I will do it again before we actually start that text a few weeks in. But once we get engaged in it and all, we're engaged in it, and we will continue working through it if we can. If it's really a big objectionable situation, again, reach out to me. We'll talk about it. We'll find a solution, because I'm all about solutions with my community and with my students. All right, so this final thing is going to be what y'all are actually going to sign off on for the syllabus. This is the only part of the document that you'll actually get printed for you, because I'm going to try and reduce the paper load at the start of the semester, because we'll use a lot of paper as we go through the rest of it. So first things first, here's the reading policy by the College Board that essentially states that we're going to be doing mature work, we're going to be approaching mature topics, and that's a part of AP English Literature. It's unavoidable. I can provide alternative assignments to some of the pieces that I mentioned above, but at the same time, most of them we're still going to be working on, and just because an alternative is assigned doesn't mean the student is going to have a peer to work with on that particular new assignment, because if students are okay with reading the materials and all, which are part of what College Board has suggested students reading against, again, almost all of them are present in questions on the AP exam, then that's what we're going to work with. Purchasing books. We are very large this year in our AP Lit program. We have a whopping 147 students taking AP English Literature, and they are all with me. In the past, we've kind of had it divided a little bit differently, but with the introduction of a new scheduling matrix, students are able to choose the courses, and a couple of changes and all and everything else, students are going to be working with me. That means that, number one, we're a little shy on books in some regards, and number two, I'm going to encourage students, if they're able to and willing, to purchase a couple of the books that we are less than fully stocked on. The books that we're less than fully stocked on are Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, The Awakening by Kate Chopin, and The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich. The first text will be needed starting around week 3. The second book will be needed week 1 of the third 6 weeks. See, students, this is what's going to happen. I'm reading it, so I'm fixing it. And then the final book will be needed starting the third week of the first 6 weeks. My suggestion is if you're going to buy these things, I would go ahead and buy them early on because there's probably going to be an inundated amount of them at half price books, or you can go to thriftbooks.com or amazon.com's marketplace. Buy them used. Buy them cheap. I'll be dead honest. These online sources are going to be way cheaper than even half-price books in many cases because the people that sell on these locations, they're definitely wanting their books to move as opposed to half-price books, which they want their books to move, but they've also got to maintain storefronts, which is a lot more expensive than having a warehouse. So just a suggestion, students, if they have their own copies, will be able to mark in them and keep those texts and all throughout the duration of the course. And it's one of those situations where if the student doesn't want them when they're going to leave Chisholm Trail High School, I will happily take donations to help build up our book supply. There's the writing text, remediation piece. The AP exams right now cost us $92. There's usually a little bit of flexibility in that. Please note there's no word right now as to whether or not there's going to be the reduction fee. And I think it's a really, really bad idea to budget and all for the last minute in many cases. And several of your students are taking way more AP courses and way more AP exams than I ever would have thought possible. My suggestion, start paying for the exams one per month and all starting in around September or October. That way you can have them paid out, pay them out a couple months and all in the fall, take some time off obviously for the holiday break, and then finish them out in the spring. And then information about the mock exams. Students who take my mock exams tend to score approximately 30% better than people that do not take them. We had an extreme decrease in the amount of high fours, and we also lost our 1.5 this year in AP Lit, and I attribute that to a number of factors, but one of the biggest ones is the fact that we had a very big dip in students that went and did mock exams. AP Lang was far stronger as far as mocking as opposed to Lit. But the problem is the district mocks, which they're still going to offer this year, they're not as thorough as mine. Mine consists of the mock and then a debrief. I grade the things while they're testing. The district ones, they don't always run the timers, and the debriefs have to happen with me in a pre-scheduled outside of class time. So I'm going to really be pumping up once we get to the spring semester, coming to my mocks, taking my mocks so that you get the benefit from it, because we are after fives. So all this information, again, will be provided on the first day of school along with this document for parents and students both to sign, and then I'll hold on to this document as we go through the course. Just gives me proof and all that I've distributed this information to you and you've gotten access to it. So that's the syllabus, intro to the course, and next up, how you're going to get graded. Talk to you in a bit.